Hello everyone and welcome to Hackademia podcast, where our goal is to make complex ideas simple. I'm very happy to share with you this new episode because we had Rodion Burden, the CEO of ifcoding, a software company based here in the Netherlands. What is exciting about it is not the output of this company, but the process that they had. It's not the story of a guy who studied computer science and eventually graduated and started his own company. Actually, Rodion comes from psychology and he joined many projects in the past, realizing shit, I need programmers all the time. So why don't I learn it myself? And to learn it, he organized meetups here in Maastricht to find people with the same goal and creating a good community that eventually became a company. But nowadays is not a good idea. Just people saying we should create a community and then build a product to sell to this community. This is not what Rodion did, because he said, okay, I want to create a community, to listen the needs of it, and then eventually to create something to serve it. And in this way, he created a position for himself not to bother the people pushing his product, but to help them to pursue the same interest in technology and eventually doing business as a consequence. So the idea that we want to share today is that there is no straight way to come into the world of technology, AI, programming and stuff. And we propose a kind of third way to do that in a community-based approach. I don't want to tell you more, so please enjoy the podcast. Hello Rodion, how are you?
Hi, hello Antonio. Nice to talk to you.
I'm very happy to have you here today because you're an IT guy, you have an IT company. But your background is not as standard as a computer scientist, for example. So I think that out there, a lot of people want to know more about how to get to this place, even without standard education. You don't even have a self-taught education by Coursera. You are kind of third way. Can you tell more about that?
Well, I did do some Coursera courses, but yeah, that's true. I don't have a classical IT education. So my background is psychology and neuroscience. I just finished the degree recently. And throughout my studies, I was getting more and more into technology. And that's how I found my way to what I'm doing.
What about your university studies, your studies in general?
You mean how it is connected to my activity in IT?
Yeah. How do you get there?
Okay, yeah, sure. So, well, as mentioned, my degree is in psychology and neuroscience, and the thing is that, well, if you're in the area of neuroscience or cognitive sciences, then sooner or later you start seeing the connections to artificial intelligence. So even if you just look at the history of artificial intelligence, you will very fast notice that it is based on cognitive models that were established by cognitive scientists or neuroscientists. So as I was going through my studies there, I also saw this connection, and it was just fueling my fascination for this topic. And more specifically, the area that I was mostly interested in, or still am, of course, is this bridge between cognitive science and artificial intelligence. So exactly the connection.
Yeah, and now you're the CEO of ifcoding, right? And how did it start? You told me that there are kind of two beginnings of it. Can you tell me more?
Yes, that's right. So here we are coming to basically the stars of it. So as I was like more fascinated about the topic of artificial intelligence, I realized that if you want to gain deeper insights, you actually have to learn also more on the technical side. So you have to understand how some algorithms work, how you can tweak them, or even ultimately how can you get to the point that you can apply them and even write them or create even better ones. I'm still not there, by the way, but I'm doing. But how did I start that? So I realized that I want to learn. I want to learn more in this direction. And to me, it was clear that the best way to learn something is by doing it, and by doing it with people that know it better than yourself. Yeah,
True,
that's
sure.
the approach in this thing. So what did I do? That was 2 years ago. I just went online and started looking for people that have the same passion and goal as I do. For people that want to learn something and people that are passionate about technology. So I found people, and we started then creating and organizing meetups. So it is something similar to hackathons. It's just hackathon usually. It's rather a one-off thing, but we had series of hackathons. So we would just meet every week or every second week, and we would work on projects that we decided on our own. So this is how we started, or this is how I started building this the tech community. So we had pizzas for the group there, so more and more people were coming over. Then at some point we added an additional format, which were talks. The idea behind it was that that throughout the time we noticed that some people are interested in technology, but don't have too many skills yet, but they want to improve, they want to learn. And for them, they were a bit afraid of coming to a meetup where where people were more hands-on, so already actually working on something. People didn't feel comfortable with this, so they preferred an approach where they can, like a half step before. And for that, we created the talks where the people can come and sit in our audience, listen to the presentation or to the talk, and before the talk, we had the opportunity to just network and socialize, where the people can just exchange ideas and thoughts and plans, and maybe even plan future projects. So on this basis, our community was growing, and at some point, after a couple of months already, although some companies showed interest in what we are doing, because what they saw is that we accumulated talent, developer talent in our community, which is in general rather challenging thing. So those companies started asking us whether we can do also some work for them. So we started doing that.
It's interesting to see how you are interested in the social part of also the job. So, for example, you take people with no skill in a certain way, in a certain sense, and you try to find a place for them, and then at the end they turns out to have skills and to really apply them for job. That's also as a social impact, and I think this community approach for job for having a company, I think is not that common now, and I think probably is what it worked in your case.
Well, yes, that's right. So the motivation was exactly this: how can we create a business model with social impact? And I mean, I'm gonna be honest. It's not easy. There are many challenges that still have to be figured out. So, I mean, and I was facing those challenges, and I also have definitely lessons that I had to learn out of it. Maybe we will come to that at a certain point. But what I can tell is, so the thinking was that if you want to start any type of enterprise, you do need starting capital. That is unavoidable. The point is just that if somebody does not have access to cash, it's not hopeless yet, because this starting capital does not have to be cash only. Nowadays, So if you are especially in the technology industry, the more valuable capital is skills and mind or brain power and Wi-Fi connection.
Yeah.
So we took this path. So we understood starting capital in the sense of manpower. Yeah. But on the other hand, what is important to mention at this point is that we did not start the community, and we were not running the community for the goal of making money.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that maybe not some corporate executive hears the story and thinks, oh, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
I'm paying so much money for headhunters and for big HR department just to get talent in, and it seems like you can do it just for free by kind of inviting people to hang out, and then they just come to you. That's not the case. So the important point is to be clear about the values within this organization and community, because what definitely does not work is if you do the community part just with the sole goal of making money. So the values have to be clear. And also the community part and the business part have to be strictly divided. At least I think that this is the lesson that I learned. We were always doing it this way, and I think that was also part of the initial success of that. So we were running our community because we honestly wanted to learn, and the business part emerged in the next step.
Yeah, it's nice also because now one of the main thing in companies to have team building activities, to make them to be compact, try to make them to share a vision. In your case, you don't even need anything of this because it's embodied in the nature of the approach, because these people came because they were interested in doing something, and if they have the opportunity to make a bigger job, for example, a bigger work, they are really happy, and you don't have to convince them, please work also 1 hour more or things like that. That's, I think, another good challenge that you faced, and a great achievement. And what in practice, what you do now in your company? And yeah.
Well, currently I'm also in a transition phase myself. So that brings us to actually back to the challenges of this business model. So we now heard a bit what were the successful parts and what worked well in terms of accumulating talent and starting business. But there is also a different side, and the other side is the challenges that come on the management level. At some point, as we were increasing our commercial activity, it became hard to integrate our community activity with our commercial activity. I think some of the reasons might be that since it is a new model, and there are not that many other stories that you can
compare. Yeah.
So it's hard to put a price tag on community activities, right? Because on the one hand, and you can understand the value of it because you know that your talent is coming through it. And on the other hand, if you have the commercial activity where you just bill your client per hour, and you clearly know that if you do this for 1 hour, this will generate this amount of revenue, right? So it's pretty straightforward. And now you have those two ends where the one is abstract, vague, but inherently valuable for the organization. And the other thing is very clear, straightforward. And now you have to balance it somehow. How much we invest in this? How much value do we assign to this? Now that was tricky, and ultimately, I think we were with the co-founder. We were not able at the end to find the perfect solution for that at that point. Therefore, we decided to go separate paths. So my co-founder moved on, and he created his own IT services company, more on a based on a more conventional business model, which is fine. So that means that I kept the company, and am taking now my next steps. So now, what am I doing currently? Well, I moved. I changed my address from Maastricht to Amsterdam. I will be studying here, and I like how I see it is that I will now expand this experiment in a new location.
Yeah.
It's not first time that you move and you start new things also, right? So yeah, maybe you can also talk about that.
Sure, exactly. So I change my environment often in my life, and it's not new to me to start within a new space. So yeah, I will see how this idea of this community based business will develop. Maybe I'm sure that things will change, things will be adapted. But where it will take me further, I cannot. I don't know. I'm curious to see, but I don't know it. Where.
And on the technical level, because you start this project because you want to learn yourself, and does it help you to, because you are actually actively involved in this, you are not just managing the projects, you are really working on it. So about technical skills, how smooth or not was the path to learn?
Well, I think in the process I learned two things. First, I learned that technical skills is not everything. And I think that is also a cause for a lot of friction out there generally within co-founders, because there is this general notion or recommendation that, well, you need to have a certain combination of founders. Like you need the technical one, you need the hustler, or you need like the hippie, and so on. So yeah, that's true. But I often see that because we are now in a time where technology has such a big impact on our lives, that sometimes the purely technical skills within teams that depend also on other tasks or on other skills. So then I see that the technical skills are sometimes a bit overvalued.
Yeah.
But
Overrated.
Overrated. Yeah. Which definitely doesn't mean that. I mean, I'm very cautious here. So to be clear, like, they are crucial, but they have to be they have to be understood in the whole context, and then they can be powerful. So, and that brings me to the second thing that I learned is that if you want to successfully manage a tech company, you cannot do it without tech skills.
Okay. Yeah, they are firstly complementary thing. The point I think is that you can create, if you don't have tech skills at all, of course you cannot do tech. But if you have tech skill but you don't have a good environment, you cannot create the synergy that creates something to be done for real. So that's probably the main thing.
Yes. I see this. I observe this type of issue often. So I don't. In a way, I also see it on an academic level. In some way, the engineers see themselves apart from other scientific disciplines, like if you take the Dutch
maybe
naming, like
beta, yeah.
So somehow the engineers see themselves somehow apart, and I don't know why. Not always, obviously, but it's just really crucial. So it's not about pointing fingers; it's about understanding that and identifying where you have to build the bridges. And that is also the thing why you also a generalist or just a business oriented person has to understand that the tech skills have to be acquired. In this way, this person learns also the language of an engineer, and then they can communicate. And the engineer has to do his or her job in taking a step towards the other side.
Okay, so this new idea of a community based company it seems interesting. And do you, I mean, okay, it's for maybe the first time that this happens, so probably you can be considered an expert of it. So do you recommend this as a format, and what are the advices that you can give to people maybe that want to try to emulate, or at least try to start from that?
Yeah. I would definitely recommend it, because the thing is, if you start doing it this way, there is actually no losing. You cannot lose anything in any scenario, because the absolutely worst case scenario that can happen is that you found many friends, you built a network with skilled professionals, and that you learned yourself very valuable skills.
Yeah, it seems
That is the
really
worst case scenario.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the better outcome is then that you manage to build a business around it. You can just, whatever it is, you can just become a freelancer, independent freelancer. You maybe through your activity, companies, you make yourself visible to some companies, so you get a job offer, or you start a company and start hiring people out of this network. So I mean, various opportunities.
So technically, how, for example, how do you set up your meetup in the beginning? You just say, okay, today we'll do this, but and how do you choose the project to do and all this stuff, for example?
So here, probably my psychology studies helped. Also combined with the skills of my co-founder at that time, because he also had experience with working with technical people in teams. So that was a good combination. So what we did was, we never tried to impose a framework on the community from the starting point. So how we did our meetups was, it was very organic. So we would observe which people would come to the meetup. So let's say we have now an initial meetup, right? Let's say before we start the project, we first announce a meetup just to brainstorm together. Okay, so then people come. We see what the skills are, what are the skill sets, what is the time availability, what is the motivation of people, things like that. Then we let the people pitch some idea, what they would like to do or to learn. So then we do that, and then we again go through some kind of voting rounds where the general community voices how interested they are in those projects that were pitched. So in this way, we start seeing then what is the potential support, whether we have in the community the people with the skills, so we can actually make some steps forward in this project. And this way, we have determined then the project that we start. And then usually we would meet every second week for an afternoon, I know it was usually from 1 till 5, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
We would also combine it with, obviously, with some snacks and drinks, not just because we are humans in one room.
Of
So
course.
don't forget that. I mean, it's details, but it's important. Don't let people sit for hours in a room without
doing eating or drinking.
So that's important. It's really important to create actually a nice atmosphere and a nice space. This is how the people also come back. So we were doing that. So then we had a project usually would run for 1 or 2 or 3 months. And then so we have set ourselves some goals for the project, like the minimum outcome. And then as we reach it, and as the time is over, we then what. Then I would like to give some examples. I think the first was to build a small remote-controlled self-driving car.
Nice.
Just the self-driving car that was the goal.
Yeah.
We ended up with a car that has some sensors, that was able to navigate through a maze. So we wrote some code for that, and then we were able to connect it also to our smartphones to navigate this car with our smartphones.
Wow.
Right? It makes an important point that you can set yourself a goal, but it's not about now making sure that you have to reach this goal, because sometimes the goal can be set too high, and you're still on a level of hobby activities. So if you then try with pure force to reach the goal because you have set it, then people become discouraged and they will just not come. And so you have to understand the aspect. So that was this one example. Another example was on something then on artificial intelligence or machine learning side, where we were, for example, tweaking algorithms that were determining the probability of survival on the Titanic. So we had a database of passengers with demographics or some other data that we were learning about machine learning algorithms, and we were then comparing which algorithms achieve the higher accuracy. So that was also just a process of learning, also very nice.
And how is the difference from doing this project for fun and doing it for job? I mean, you cannot be slack for for a job.
Yeah.
And the goal must be achieved in this case, right?
Yeah. So I will paraphrase your question just to make sure that I understood right.
Mm-hmm.
You asked if you then transfer from the community activity to commercial activity, how do you manage it?
Exactly. Yeah, because it's totally different level. You cannot have that freedom in job that you can have. For example, reaching a goal is not even an option anymore. So
yeah, that's right. So well, first, during in our community and during our community activities, we always made a clear distinction. I think I already mentioned, but I will also repeat it. We made always a clear distinction between the community side and the commercial side. If somebody is show the interest to join a commercial activity, then we were looking for a fit in the project. How would we do that? So we would start off with a mode where we subcontract the person. So usually the people were already freelancers or they registered as freelancers. So this way we were able to work on project basis. So that there it becomes straightforward, right? The person just you agree on an hourly rate, and then you are billed per hour, and that's it, and you build the client.
Yes.
So that is relatively straightforward. After a while, we also then added interns. Yeah, we have we had two interests. And with this, we wanted to create a customer base and also a financial buffer to be able to put the first developers on payroll. Now, at some point, we were already there. So we were able to put somebody on a payroll, but then, as it's so often in business, other challenges emerged. So we were not able at that point to hire people and put them on our payroll.
So quickly, give me 3 advices that you will give for who want to start his own AI community.
So you already added the AI community. I wouldn't even limit it in such a way. I mean, I think you can even create communities beyond AI. You can always find the value for yourself. So if I may suggest, from my side, I will just expand it to just how to start a community. Do you agree?
I agree.
So I would give it like 3 points. This was also how it started for me. So at some point I sat down, I was thinking, what do I like to do? And what is it? What is the activity that when I'm doing it, I forget about time and about my environment? That's when do you get in your flow? So I was trying to figure out that for myself. So in my case, it was just doing stuff with technology. Then the second thing was then I started looking around who else shares my passion for learning new skills. That's the second thing. And the third point is then that you go and reach out to those people and just absolutely simply just start doing something together and time box it. Always important, time box it. Set yourself some goal that you want to achieve in 2 months, and then the rest, everything beyond that will come on its own. This you don't have to plan to emerge.
Well, that's great. I think I'll make it a treasure. Thank you very much. And now we talk about the past, a bit of the present. Now, what about the future? Do you have some future project that you are interested in?
Yeah. So and something what I observed also in the work from our clients. I mean, there are many things that I observed, but one thing I took out for myself, and that's so I understood for myself that the cloud-based solutions and architectures will gain more and more importance. Why? Well, for example, sure also your audience will have heard about the new network that will be coming up, the 5G network, which, well, in short, you can send more data faster at the same time from one place to another. So that opens new opportunities. Now the thing is, you have to be able to. We are dealing with big amounts of data, and this amounts of data are just growing and growing. So on the one hand, we have to store big amounts of data, and also we have to process big amounts of data. And this information also has to move from between some points. And to be able to that, you have to rely on the cloud, because this is where you can have big amounts of information. Because some small mid-sized company, they will not be able to afford to have their own servers in the basement that are able to store all that. So they have to have it in the cloud. So now, if you combine the cloud-based solutions with also the 5G network, and also then with emerging technologies like virtual reality and augmented reality, which will ultimately merge on the user side with just the applications that we have today on just on a screen, so they will just augment, and you will basically be adding an additional dimension to the user interface. So I see a lot of potential here. So my goal is to specialize further in cloud-based solutions and web app development, and then also based on that to integrate also artificial intelligence and machine learning to ultimately automatize or improve processes to create added value for the user.
Great. I like also the fact that that your vision is always related to what you actually want to learn yourself, and then you will implement. I like this approach. And
it is a thing from psychology. The thing with intrinsic and extrinsic motivation.
Yeah.
I will not go into that, but for your listeners, look it up on Wikipedia, and then you will understand my approach.
Okay, thank you very much. And maybe going to the end, I will say when you approach a project, on the website of ifcoding, there is claim that you use Scrum. I'm not sure about how to pronounce it, for managing a project. Maybe you use also other example of tools. Can you recommend something to us?
You mentioned the word tool, so it's exactly also that. So it's the Scrum is a toolbox, and of course, so Scrum is described as a toolbox that's so if you use it like in this absolutely most complete sense, like you do everything as described in Scrum, then it's described as this will produce the best possible outcome for you. I'm not saying that it's wrong. What I'm saying is just that you have to adjust to the business culture in the location where you are. What I, for example, saw was that sometimes companies were even a bit uncomfortable with this idea of Scrum because they were unfamiliar with that. So then they were rather also preferring an approach that is known from this conventional business called waterfall model. So what we started doing was we were actually combining waterfall and Scrum. I hope I will not get any angry emails from Scrum practitioners or waterfall practitioners saying that I'm just like violating everything. But we were doing that because we wanted to adapt to the needs and the wishes of our clients. Internally, we use tools from Scrum for task management. Now, at this moment, like for example, I collaborate with the developer team, and we have a client, and in this collaboration, we have a weekly review, for example. And that might sound intuitively logical. Yeah, well, obviously, you just talk to your client every week. Yes, sure. But the thing is, it is not that self-evident in the industry. Sometimes the client will expect that they just have an initial meeting with you, they explain to you what they want, you write it down, and you go back to your office, do your thing, and come back after 1, 2, 3 months, I don't know, half a year, whatever, and deliver. And also, there is this understanding. And I just believe that this understanding is not the most optimal one. Therefore, part of the Scrum approach is to have to get more feedback from your client and more often. In short, I just paraphrase it. So that's an example of us using Scrum in our work with the client.
Okay, beautiful. So if people want to know more about you or how to reach you, what do you have any links that you can recommend?
Sure, plenty. I have there is a website, but also as it's often the website has to be also still again updated. But there is quite some relevant information, especially general information. There is also a Facebook page. There is my LinkedIn under my name. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. But at the end, if people want to get in touch with ifcoding or with me, they can just write me an email. And the email address is also out there. Yeah, it is on the website, so it is info@ifcoding.nl. And who we are looking for, what is it that we want to do is, so now currently I would like to expand the community activities again, and because I am myself in Amsterdam, I'm looking for partners to do that here, in organizing meetups and talks, to share interest and knowledge from the tech industry, and also we then further have also the goal to expand my network further here. And we also don't limit ourselves purely on to developers. So we also need, for example, designers, UX designers, often in our project. So yeah, this is who we are looking for: developers, designers, also just younger people that are interested in internships just for a certain time to engage in the community activities. Also, we are very open to that as well. And of course, if anybody thinks this is a great idea and they want just to create something like that in their own city, then I'm also very open to that, to partner up, to share the coding community brand as an umbrella, and build those things in various locations.
Great. Thank you very much, Rodion, for everything. I think we are also open to this kind of idea. I mean, Hackademia is trying to find an alternative path for education too. So we're almost on the same wave. So perfect. Thank you very much for your time, and good luck for everything. Bye bye.
Evan.
Thank you. Have a nice day.